If you ever find a small pile of fresh sawdust sitting on a tree branch, you may be looking at evidence of a life hidden just beneath the surface. At first glance, it seems like nothing more than dust left behind by the wind, but grain by grain, that material was pushed out from inside the wood by something you cannot see. Deep within the branch, a beetle larva may be slowly carving tunnels through the darkness, eating, growing, and living an entire life hidden from the world above. The surprising part is that some of these tiny creatures can remain there for years before anyone notices. And the deeper scientists looked into these secret tunnels, the stranger the story became. If hidden worlds like this make you see nature a little differently, subscribe, because some of the most fascinating lives on Earth are happening inside places that look completely empty. Imagine walking through a quiet park after a windy afternoon. A few fallen branches lie scattered beneath the trees. Most people would pass by without a second thought. They look dry, ordinary, and lifeless. But every now and then, one of those branches reveals a small clue. Resting on the bark might be a tiny pile of pale sawdust. Not much, just a pinch. Easy to miss unless the sunlight catches it at the right angle. At first it seems strange because there is no saw nearby and no obvious damage around it. The branch appears almost untouched. Yet that little pile should not be there. And that is where the story begins. The sawdust did not fall from above. It came from inside. Somewhere beneath the bark, hidden within the wood itself, a small creature has been working in complete darkness. While birds sing overhead and leaves move in the breeze, an entirely different world is unfolding just a few millimeters below the surface. The branch that seems still is not still at all. It is occupied. Most people think of trees as solid structures. A trunk is a trunk. A branch is a branch. But wood is more than a building material created by nature. To countless small creatures, it is food, shelter, protection, and sometimes an entire lifetime of habitat. The strange thing is that much of this activity remains invisible. We notice birds building nests. We notice squirrels running along branches. We notice caterpillars eating leaves. But what happens inside the wood often escapes our attention completely. And yet some of the most fascinating lives in the forest are taking place there. If you look closely at fresh sawdust on a branch, you are seeing evidence of an animal that may never emerge for months or even years. Somewhere inside, a beetle larva is slowly chewing through the wood. It does not move quickly. It has nowhere to rush. Day after day, week after week, it follows a simple routine. Eat, tunnel, grow, rest, then repeat. The process is so slow that a human observer would barely notice any change. But over time, that tiny creature can carve surprisingly long passageways through the branch, and every tunnel leaves behind waste material. The larva pushes this material out through small openings. What lands outside becomes the sawdust that catches our eye. The remarkable part is that each grain tells a story. Every speck was once part of the tree itself. Now it marks the path of a hidden resident living just beyond sight. If you were somehow able to see through the bark, the inside might surprise you. Instead of solid wood, you could find winding tunnels that twist through the branch like miniature cave systems. Some are narrow and simple, others branch into multiple directions. Different species create different patterns. To an expert, these tunnels can almost act like signatures. They reveal who was there long after the insect is gone. But most people never realize they are looking at a record of an entire life. The branch becomes a map, the tunnels become footprints, and the sawdust becomes a message from a creature that never intended to be seen. What makes this even more interesting is how the story starts. Long before there is sawdust, long before there are tunnels, there is a single egg. A female beetle searches carefully for a suitable place. Not every branch will do. The wood must be right. The moisture must be right. The conditions must give her offspring a chance to survive. Once she finds the right spot, she lays an egg in a crack, under loose bark, or within a tiny opening. Then she leaves. For many species, that is the last contact between parent and offspring. The future larva is completely on its own. When the egg finally hatches, the new arrival enters a world without sunlight. It has no guide and no teacher. Yet somehow it already knows what to do. It begins to chew. The wood becomes both home and food at the same time. That may sound simple, but wood is not an easy meal. It is tough, dry, and packed with material that many animals cannot digest. Beetle larvae have evolved specialized bodies for exactly this challenge. Their jaws are powerful compared to their size. Their bodies are built for squeezing through tight spaces. Their lives are perfectly suited to a habitat that most creatures would find impossible. And this raises an interesting question. If so many larvae are living inside branches and logs, why do we almost never see them? The answer lies in patience. Their entire strategy depends on remaining hidden. Outside the branch, predators are everywhere. Birds search for insects. Other insects hunt smaller insects. Tiny parasites look for hosts. Exposure can mean death. Inside the wood, however, the larva is protected by layers of natural armor. The branch becomes a fortress. Safe within its tunnels, it can spend months growing larger while the world outside continues to change. Seasons pass, rain falls, snow may come and go. Leaves appear and disappear. Yet inside the branch, the hidden resident keeps working. And this is the detail many people never notice. That small pile of sawdust is not simply debris. It is proof that the branch is alive with activity. What appears to be a dead piece of wood may actually contain a secret world of tunnels, growth, and transformation. But the deeper scientists began studying these hidden inhabitants, the more surprising the story became, because a branch is rarely occupied by just one life. What makes these hidden tunnels even more fascinating is that they are rarely empty except for a single larva. A branch may look like one simple object from the outside, but inside it can become a crowded world filled with different forms of life. Tiny fungi spread through the wood. Microscopic organisms break down plant tissue. Other insects arrive later and follow existing tunnels. Predators search for prey. In some cases, an entire community develops within a space no larger than a human hand. The branch slowly transforms into something closer to a living apartment building than a piece of wood. And the beetle larva is often at the center of it all. As it chews through the branch, it changes the environment around itself. New passages allow moisture to move through the wood. Small openings let air enter places that were once sealed. Fungi may begin growing along tunnel walls. Other creatures discover these pathways and move in. What started as a single egg becomes the beginning of a much larger chain of events. Most people never realize that one hidden insect can influence an entire miniature ecosystem. The strange part is that the larva spends nearly its entire life in darkness, yet it is far from disconnected from the outside world. Scientists have discovered that many wood-boring larvae can sense vibrations moving through the wood around them. Every branch acts almost like a giant speaker. Wind creates vibrations, rain creates vibrations, the movement of other insects creates vibrations. Even a bird landing nearby can send tiny signals through the wood. To us, these signals are completely silent, but for an animal living inside a tunnel, they may provide valuable information about what is happening beyond the walls. Imagine spending your entire life inside a wooden hallway and still being able to sense activity outside without ever seeing it. Nature has found ways to make that possible. Some larvae may even react when danger approaches. A predator pecking at bark creates a different pattern of vibrations than a gentle breeze. This allows the hidden insect to remain alert despite never seeing the outside world. But sensing danger is only one challenge. Finding enough nutrition is another. Wood may seem plentiful, but it is not especially rich in nutrients. This creates an interesting problem. How can a growing insect survive on such a difficult diet? The answer involves partnerships that are easy to overlook. Many wood-eating insects rely on microorganisms living inside their digestive systems. These microscopic helpers assist in breaking down tough plant material. In a way, the larva is never truly alone. An invisible community travels with it everywhere. Together, they turn material that would be nearly useless into a source of energy. Nature often works through cooperation rather than competition alone, and this hidden partnership is one of the reasons these insects can survive in places where many others cannot. Yet life inside a branch is not always peaceful. Sometimes multiple larvae occupy the same piece of wood. Their tunnels may approach one another from different directions. Each individual is trying to find enough food while avoiding unnecessary conflict. Some species tolerate neighbors, others compete more aggressively. The branch becomes a maze of intersecting lives, all unfolding out of sight. If we could remove the bark and watch time speed forward, we would see a network constantly expanding and changing beneath the surface. New tunnels appear, old tunnels collapse, different species arrive and leave. What seems motionless from the outside is actually full of activity. And then there is another detail that many people never notice. Not all sawdust looks the same. The size, shape, color, and texture can reveal clues about the insect that produced it. Some species create fine powder that resembles flour. Others leave behind larger fragments that look like tiny wood chips. To trained observers, these differences can tell an entire story. The branch itself becomes a kind of document written in sawdust. Every pile contains information about feeding habits, tunnel size, and even the stage of development of the insect inside. Most of us walk past these signs without realizing that nature has left clues in plain sight. The more closely you look, the more the hidden world begins to reveal itself. But perhaps the most surprising thing is how long this process can continue. Many people imagine insects living fast lives measured in days or weeks. Some do. But wood-boring beetle larvae often operate on a very different schedule. Depending on the species and environmental conditions, development may take years. While seasons change outside, the larva continues its slow journey through the wood. Summer warmth arrives and fades, autumn leaves fall, winter snow may cover the forest floor, spring returns again. Through it all, the hidden resident keeps feeding and growing. There is something almost peaceful about that pace. In a world that often seems fast and noisy, these insects live according to a rhythm measured in years rather than moments. Yet this long, hidden childhood is leading towards something remarkable. Because the tunnels and sawdust are only part of the story, everything the larva has been doing since the day it hatched is preparing it for a transformation that will eventually bring it back into the open air. And when that moment finally arrives, the branch that once seemed ordinary reveals just how much has been happening inside all along. Eventually, the hidden life inside the branch reaches a turning point. For months or years, the larva has done little more than eat and grow. Its world has been narrow tunnels, darkness, and wood. But nature has been preparing it for something entirely different. Deep inside its chamber, the larva begins a transformation that would seem almost impossible if we did not know it was real. The soft, pale creature that spent years chewing through wood slowly reorganizes itself into an adult beetle. Legs develop, wings form, antennae appear. The animal that eventually emerges may look nothing like the creature that entered the branch as a tiny hatchling. This process happens in complete silence. No audience watches it, no dramatic signal announces it. Somewhere inside a piece of wood that most people would ignore, one of nature's most remarkable transformations quietly unfolds. Then one day the waiting ends. The adult beetle begins moving toward the surface. It follows instincts that have guided countless generations before it. Slowly, it chews through the final barrier separating its hidden world from the open air. The result is often a small round hole in the bark. To most people it looks insignificant, but that tiny opening marks the end of a journey that may have taken years. The beetle enters sunlight for the first time. It feels air moving around its body. It encounters a world it has never seen before. Everything that happened inside the branch was leading to this moment. Yet surprisingly, the story does not end there. Because the hidden world inside wood contains far stranger relationships than most people imagine. Some of the most unusual creatures associated with beetle larvae are almost invisible themselves. Tiny parasitic wasps have evolved ways of finding larvae concealed deep within branches. At first, this sounds impossible. How can a creature locate another creature hidden inside solid wood? Scientists are still uncovering all the details, but many parasitic wasps appear capable of detecting subtle clues produced by their concealed hosts. Some respond to vibrations, others may use chemical signals. However they do it, the result is extraordinary. A wasp no larger than a grain of rice can identify a larva hidden beneath layers of bark and wood. Then comes one of nature's strangest scenes. Certain species possess incredibly long egg-laying structures capable of reaching deep into the wood. From the outside, the branch appears completely ordinary. Yet beneath the surface, a silent interaction is taking place between animals that may never actually see one another. The hidden world turns out to be even more complex than it first appeared, and it is not only predators and parasites that shape life inside branches. Some beetles maintain surprisingly close relationships with fungi. In certain cases, the insects help spread fungal spores into new pieces of wood. The fungi begin breaking down plant material, making conditions more suitable for future generations. It is a partnership that has developed over immense spans of time. Neither participant is acting alone. Together, they influence how forests recycle dead wood and return nutrients back into the ecosystem. What seems like decay is actually renewal. A fallen branch does not simply disappear. It becomes part of a long chain of transformation involving insects, fungi, microorganisms, and countless other forms of life. The more closely scientists study these systems, the more interconnected everything appears. But perhaps the most fascinating discovery is how much communication may occur in places we once assumed were silent. Research has shown that insects living inside wood can produce vibrations by scraping body parts together or tapping against tunnel walls. These signals travel through the wood itself. To human ears, the branch appears quiet, yet from the perspective of the insects, information may be moving through the structure constantly. Signals can help individuals locate mates, warn rivals, or identify occupied territory. In a sense, the branch becomes a communication network. Messages pass through solid wood while the forest around it remains unaware. Most people standing beneath a tree would never imagine such activity taking place overhead, and this changes how we think about what a branch really is. We often see it as an object. Nature sees it as habitat. We see a fallen limb. Nature sees food, shelter, pathways, nurseries, hunting grounds, and entire communities. A single piece of wood may support dozens of species over time. Some arrive first, others follow later. Each leaves traces behind for the next inhabitants. The branch becomes a stage where countless small stories overlap, yet nearly all of them remain hidden from view. This is why that tiny pile of sawdust matters. It is one of the few visible signs that something larger is happening. It acts like a doorway into a world most people never notice. Once you understand what it means, it becomes difficult to ignore. Every fresh pile suggests tunnels beneath the surface. Every tunnel suggests a hidden resident. Every hidden resident suggests a network of relationships extending far beyond what we can see. Suddenly, a simple branch is no longer simple. It becomes evidence of a living system operating quietly beside us. And there is one final detail that makes this story even more remarkable. Many of the insects creating these tunnels are surrounded by humans every day. They live in parks, forests, gardens, and neighborhoods. Their entire lives unfold only a few feet away from where people walk, talk, and go about their routines. Yet most of us never realize they are there. We notice the tree, we notice the leaves, we notice the shade. But inside the wood, another world continues its patient work. A world of tunnels, signals, transformations, partnerships, predators, and survival. And the deeper we look into that hidden world, the more surprising it becomes. The next time you find yourself beneath a tree, it may be worth slowing down for a moment. Not because something dramatic is happening. In fact, the opposite is true. Some of the most remarkable things in nature happen so quietly that they disappear into the background of everyday life. A branch hangs overhead. A fallen limb rests beside a trail. A small patch of sawdust sits on the bark. None of these things demand attention. They simply exist. Yet hidden within them are stories that may have been unfolding for years. Stories that began with an egg smaller than a grain of rice and continued through seasons of growth, survival, and transformation. We often think of nature in terms of the things we can easily see. A deer crossing a meadow, a hawk circling above a field, a butterfly landing on a flower. These moments capture our attention because they are visible. But the natural world is filled with lives that remain hidden most of the time. Entire dramas unfold beneath bark, beneath soil, beneath leaves, and beneath the surface of water. The creatures involved are not trying to hide from us specifically. We simply move through life too quickly to notice them. And perhaps that is what makes discoveries like these feel so fascinating. They remind us that the world is larger than our immediate experience of it. Every piece of wood in a forest carries a history. Some branches are young, others are old. Some have survived storms, others have broken and fallen. As time passes, each one becomes part of a larger cycle. Insects arrive, fungi spread, microorganisms begin their work. Nutrients locked inside the wood slowly return to the environment. Nothing is wasted. Nature rarely leaves anything unused for long. What appears to be the end of a branch's story is often the beginning of countless new ones. A fallen limb becomes shelter. A tunnel becomes a home. A pile of sawdust becomes evidence of life. The forest continuously reshapes itself through these quiet exchanges. The remarkable thing is that most of this happens without noise, without spectacle, and without drawing attention to itself. It simply continues. There is something almost comforting about that. In a world filled with constant movement and distraction, the hidden life inside a branch follows a different rhythm. It does not rush. It does not compete for attention. A beetle larva may spend years completing a process that people would overlook in seconds. Yet that slow journey is no less important. In fact, forests depend on countless small processes like these. Without insects breaking down wood, dead material would accumulate differently. Nutrients would move through ecosystems differently. Entire chains of life would be affected. The tiny creatures hidden inside branches are not separate from the forest. They help create it. They help maintain it. They are threads woven into a much larger living system. And this realization changes the way ordinary things appear. A branch is no longer just a branch. A hole in the bark is no longer just a hole. Sawdust is no longer simply dust. Once you understand what these signs represent, you begin seeing traces of hidden activity everywhere. A fallen log becomes a landscape. A tree trunk becomes a habitat. Even silence begins to feel different. Beneath that silence are vibrations, movements, and lives, continuing their work beyond sight. It is easy to imagine nature as something distant that exists only in remote forests or untouched wilderness. Yet many of these hidden worlds exist right beside us. They are found in city parks, suburban gardens, country roads, and patches of woodland visited every day by people who never realize what is happening nearby. The secret life of a beetle larva does not require an exotic location. It requires only a suitable piece of wood and time. And time is perhaps the most important ingredient of all. The hidden world we explored today exists because nature is patient. Trees grow slowly. Wood forms slowly. Tunnels are carved slowly. Transformations unfold slowly. We often measure life through moments, but nature frequently measures it through seasons and years. When we pause long enough to notice that pace, even familiar surroundings begin to feel new again. Suddenly there is mystery where there once seemed to be none. Curiosity replaces assumption. A simple walk becomes an opportunity to observe details that were always present but rarely noticed. And maybe that is the real lesson hidden inside a small pile of sawdust. Not that beetle larvae are unusual, not that branches contain secret tunnels, but that the living world is far richer than it first appears. Every day we move through landscapes filled with stories that remain unfinished. Beneath bark, beneath leaves, beneath stones, and beneath the ground, countless lives continue their quiet journeys. Most will never be seen directly, yet their presence shapes the world around us in ways both small and profound. So, if you ever notice a little pile of sawdust resting on a branch, take a closer look. You may be standing beside a doorway into a hidden world, a world that has been there all along, patiently waiting for someone to notice.